What's up, everyone? It's your host, Chris Rosvoglou, and welcome inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast presented by Buku Media and Level Water. Level Water is a New Orleans-based alkaline water that goes through 11 stages of purification and is infused with bioavailable minerals to deliver superior taste and hydrations. Try Level Water today by visiting levelwatercode.com/BKM and use their latest code BKM6PK for a free six-pack of Level Water. Now, this is an emergency edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I hinted at us maybe having one this week had something gone down. I didn't actually think something was going to go down, but obviously that was the case with Ryan Ramczyk signing a 5-year extension with the New Orleans Saints. And this is fun times, not just for the team, but the player as well. And you kind of look back at the way things went with the Saints in that draft. We thought that they would maybe go with Reuben Foster. Instead, they go with Ryan Ramczyk, and obviously that worked out for the better. But let's just look at the terms of the contract, what I think about it in the present day, what I think this means for the future. There's a lot of moving parts with something like this. And obviously, let's just look at it. 5-year, $96 million. Originally, Schefter said 90, but then they looked at it, it's 96 and $60 million guaranteed. So he's the highest paid right tackle. Absolutely justified, in my opinion. I have not seen a single Saints fan complain about this deal, which just shows us, one, what we think about Ryan Ramczyk, and two, kind of what we think about this front office and the deals they've been able to make with players of this sort. So he's the highest paid right tackle in football. He's got $60 million guaranteed. He's got $96 million over that 5-year span. And honestly, and you say it's an underpay, and I absolutely agree, it, for me, is an underpay in the sense that when I thought, okay, he's going to reset the market, I was like, okay, maybe he gets $22 million a year. Who knows? Maybe 23, something over that, but he's actually under the $20 million per year mark. I think that's an underpay in my opinion. It's a great deal, great value. And now the Saints have him for the next 6 years because it's the 5th year of that rookie contract. And then also remember, it's the 5 years added from this extension. So he's going to be on the Saints for a long time. I joked around putting a video of Tobey Maguire dancing from Spider-Man 3. And I was like, okay, this was my reaction. Now, I didn't actually bust out those moves, but I was obviously thrilled. You know, this is a deal that we all wanted to happen. Ryan Ramczyk has been the epitome of consistency, the epitome of durability and reliability for the last couple of years. I mean, think about it. He's been on the Saints for just 4 seasons, guys. And in those 4 seasons, he's made the All-Pro team 3 times, twice on second team All-Pro and once first team All-Pro. And the funny thing is he's never made a Pro Bowl. Meanwhile, other players on the Saints who will not be named have made multiple Pro Bowls, and it just, one, shows how stupid the Pro Bowl is. But also, if you just look at Ramczyk's resume, this is a guy who, when he was drafted in 2017, a lot of people thought, okay, what is the plan? Does he start in a year from now? Does he start in 2 years from now? Because at the time, Zach Strief was your right tackle. Zach Strief goes down. The Saints don't miss a beat. If anything, they probably got better at that position just because Zach was older and Ramczyk was younger and on the rise. And it's just been such a fun time watching him at right tackle. There are games where he just flat out neutralizes the opposition, whether it's a Khalil Mack or a Chandler Jones or a Vic Beasley. It doesn't matter. He really just neutralizes those guys because he's one of the best in the business. And another thing about Ramczyk, and I didn't tweet about this, but you know, it kind of went through my head when this deal went down. Not only is he a durable guy, which is something that you need to have in this NFL, it's, can you play through pain? And he's actually done that, because if I go list the injuries Ramczyk's had, it's probably a lot. I mean, the guy's had a hip injury. He's had a knee injury. I feel like he's had an ankle injury somewhere thrown in there. And he's just always on the field. He'll just play through the pain. And I think this is the type of guy that you pay, not just because of the fact that you never have to worry about him off the field, but what he does on the field, what he brings for your future quarterback, whether that's Jameis Winston or that's Taysom Hill or whether that's Book or that's a quarterback in free agency next year or via trade or via draft, whatever it may be, whoever the quarterback of the future is going to be, they are going to have that right side of the offensive line just absolutely solidified. And who knows, maybe in 2 years from now, they kick him to left tackle, regardless of where they use him. Ramczyk is going to get the job done. I am absolutely thrilled for him. And it's just so funny how things work, because if we go just, turn back the clock a little bit and go back to 2017 when the draft happened, I remember a lot of us wanted Reuben Foster. And I'll admit, when they drafted Ryan Ramczyk, and this is coming from me, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I'll speak for myself here. When Ryan Ramczyk was drafted, I kind of thought, man, this was a pick that is for the future, and I wasn't thrilled about it in the present day. And I was like, I could have, I would have rather seen Reuben Foster there or maybe someone else. And it's just funny how it works, because Reuben Foster he's gotten injured, unfortunately for him, but he's also been in a lot of trouble off the field. Meanwhile, you have Ramczyk, just absolutely balling out, being one of the best, I'm going to say best NFL players, not just offensive linemen, just best players in general. He's been ranked in the top 25 in most people's rankings. So he's just flat out amazing. It's funny how it works. And I think this move, not only is it great for the future of the team, but it's actually great for the present in the sense that this is going to have financial implications on what the Saints are able to do for the next couple of weeks. And what I mean by that is Ryan Ramczyk's cap hit, and Nick Underhill talked about it. It's about $11.06 million for this season, which, by the way, isn't terrible. But what you can do because of this contract extension, you can actually lower that cap number, which they probably will do. And when you do that, you free up more wiggle room, more breathing room, and that gives you more cap space. And Mickey Loomis is the type of guy who can go with $10 into a store and he can get whatever the hell he wants. Well, now he'll have about $100 or $200 per se, obviously more money than that. But the whole point of it is this deal is going to open up cap space for the Saints to be a little bit more aggressive, whether that means they want to sign a cornerback or maybe get another deal done. They'll have those options. I think the more likely of the two is that you'll see Mickey Loomis go out and get a cornerback. He's kind of hinted at that position not being fortified and that position needing a little bit more depth, and rightfully so, because one, you can't have enough cornerbacks in this league, and two, outside of Marshawn Lattimore, can you name me an outside cornerback on this Saints team that you say, okay, I trust week in, week out? That guy's not there. Can Paulson Adebo become that? Maybe. Can Patrick Robinson do that? Not sure, but he'd also have to stay healthy. Can PJ Williams do that? Probably not. So you look at the Saints at the outside cornerback depth, it's not great. Somehow, though, there are still options on the free agency market, albeit not amazing, but still serviceable options like a Richard Sherman or a Garyon Conley or a Steven Nelson or even Dre Kirkpatrick, who's actually met with the New Orleans Saints. So a deal like this opens the door. And I think and I kind of talked about it last episode, guys, the Saints you're kind of getting swept under the rug because they did lose Drew Brees and they did lose Quan Alexander and they did lose Morstead and they lost a lot of pieces that to the casual fan, you look at this team and say, okay, the window's shut, no more contending for them for now. But I think it's the other way. I think, look, if this cornerback 2 issue gets, somehow fixed, whether it's through a free agency ad, like maybe a Richard Sherman, who for 1 year, Richard Sherman could still get the job done. And remind you, he'd be the second cornerback, not the first, because Marshawn Lattimore's your CB1, and that's not a question that needs to be answered. That would really change things. And you talk about the needs for this team and the holes. Well, that's been the bane hole for me throughout the year. I've been saying it. Cornerback 2, the minute you let Janoris Jenkins go, I'm a little concerned. But if you do get that hole all shored up, okay, I look at this team, well, I think they'll get decent quarterback play, and that's all they need. I think their O-line will continue to be good. I think they still have a great wide receiver in Michael Thomas. I think they have a running game will be productive with Latavius Murray and with an Alvin Kamara. So I think you all of a sudden start looking around and you're like, okay, yeah, this Saints team did lose some depth. This Saints team did lose their leader in Drew Brees, but they still have leaders in Demario Davis and Cam Jordan and Teron Armstead, and they still have top-tier talent. As we mentioned, 5 players ranked in the PFF top 50. There's top-tier talent. There's good leadership. There's great coaching. So, hey, if they can fix this cornerback 2 issue, you are erasing the biggest need, in my opinion, off the board. And that's why this Ramczyk deal is a win-win. It's a win in the fact that you're paying a great player to keep him around for the long haul, and you are also making giving yourself the option, if you want to go get more help at a position that, look, I'm looking at it and I'm worried, you're worried, and if they can figure out that cornerback issue opposite of Marshawn Lattimore, we look around and say, okay, this Saints team is absolutely in business. Now, I said it was going to be a brief live stream, but if you guys want, throw in some questions and I'll answer them for sure. So one of them that I want to answer here, do you think we have any chance of getting Sherman or Quan? So I think it's kind of a mix. I think it's a mix for Quan. It's tough because I would like to see Quan Alexander back on the Saints. I will continue to bang that drum as much as I want. I think he looks incredible, or as good as someone can look in their rehab at this stage. However, I just don't know if the Saints really want to open that door. Now, I think it would make a lot of sense because Quan's not going to have a full offseason, so him going to a team where you have to learn a new playbook, that consumes even more time. But again, it's up to the Saints. Do the Saints feel like they can actually bring him back in there and have some value and find a role for Quan Alexander that works? I know that's what you guys want to happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I would at most, I'd go like 50-50, and I don't even know if it's that strong right now. However, That's just my gut feeling. That's not what I want. I would like to see Quan Alexander back in the black and gold. Just don't know if that happens. As for Sherman, I think this is pretty interesting. He wants to be on a team where he can contend. The Saints can do that. He wants to get paid at some level. Now the Saints can definitely do that for 1 year. He would be with Chris Richard, who he has great history with, and we know their success on the field. So that would be really interesting. And then the other part, and this is where he kind of acted as if it wouldn't happen, but I think it would. He wants to be somewhere where he's starting. And when he talked about the Saints, he mentioned how they drafted Paulson Adebo, and I didn't know if that was just his way of saying, okay, well, let me just commend my alma mater in Stanford, or was it his way of saying, okay, well, yeah, I think this kid's that legit and he could start and they don't need me. And if it's the latter, then okay, then he wouldn't be coming to the Saints. But I do think there is a possibility of Sherman. If it's not Sherman, I think there's a possibility you sign a Garyon Conley or Dre Kirkpatrick. Or if the Saints like him, Steven Nelson's an intriguing option as well. Don't know if he's been mentioned as much, but I think it is pivotal, absolutely pivotal, that the Saints get another cornerback in there. And for me, and I agree with this take, if you're telling me which would rather have, another cornerback or Quan, I'd rather have another cornerback, but I do not think that Quan is going to be expensive enough for them to not be able to do one or the other. I think they can easily do both in terms of money. Now, I'm going to take a couple more questions before I head out, but people are talking about free agency. It's not just cornerbacks. You mentioned Melvin Ingram being a free agent. That for me is actually kind of nuts too. Melvin Ingram's a guy who has shown when healthy, in the right system, with the right supporting cast, this is a Pro Bowl caliber player, and he's not signed. I know he visited with the Chiefs a couple of months ago, but nothing there. I don't think this concerns the Saints, though. I think the Saints, in terms of front seven, have the depth that they want, and if they were to make another move, it would be, let's say, to sign Quan for cheap. But again, I'm hesitant to say that'll happen side. But I think this all just comes down to the cornerback position and how the Saints want to attack that. And before I do bounce, I'll bring this one up because this is funny. Zach Baun, the funny thing is, as a prospect, a lot of us, including myself, we loved him. And the Saints took something he's very good at, which is rushing the quarterback, and said, you know what? He's really not going to do much of that. And that, for me, is just crazy. I don't understand how that happens. And I know the Saints had a different vision for the player than what he was in college, but I just don't see how you can watch him do what he did at Wisconsin in that hybrid role where he could rush the passer and get back in coverage and make plays as a true linebacker and say, okay, well, you're not going to rush the passer at all. And when you do that, I think it really hurts the player. It stunts their growth, and he made zero impact last year. The only impact he made was on special teams. But again, guys, this was just a really brief live stream just because I wanted to get out there, get my brief thoughts on the Ramczyk deal. But here's how I see it, just to wrap it up all together. I think it's an A+ deal for the team. I actually think they didn't have to pay. They paid less than I thought they would. I really thought they would pay 5-year, 100+. It's actually under the $100 million mark. So by the rules, that is an underpay in my opinion. I think that it is an absolute win for the franchise, and the fact that Ryan Ramczyk, one of their best players, will be in the long haul for the next 6 years. And now we sit back and we wait and we see what they do with this excess money. Do they sign Richard Sherman? Do they sign Dre Kirkpatrick? Do they get Steven Nelson? Do they get Garyon Conley? And hey, in a week from now, a month from now, do they get a deal done with Marcus Williams? That's another intriguing not free agent, but future free agent, and a 2017 draft class member who they actually, hit the nail on the head in terms of drafting a stud at that second round. That's a guy who they'll eventually have to lock up long-term. So hopefully we'll have another emergency live stream where we're talking about Marcus Williams in the near future. But that's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you guys hopping on, leaving your comments, talking about it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the upcoming holiday weekend and celebrate. I mean, this is fun. The Saints have their star player locked up for the next 5 years. Nothing better than that. I'll be back with more content next week on the Straight Up Saints podcast.